You know that feeling when you scroll through a sea of glossy laptop ads, the colors practically jump off the screen, and the specs look like they were ripped straight from a sci-fi movie, only to find the machine feels like a brick once you actually plug it in? I've been there more than once, buying a gaming laptop that promised buttery smooth frames and a display that would make Photoshop sing, and ending up with a device that either throttles under load or drains the battery before you even finish your first level. That hesitation, that little voice warning you about another disappointment, is why I'm diving deep into the Lenovo ThinkPad P16 Gen 2 today. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, let's talk about the kind of person who actually needs a laptop like this. If you're a freelance 3D artist who spends hours in Blender or Maya, a data scientist training models on the go, or a hardcore gamer who refuses to compromise on resolution and texture quality, the P16 lands squarely in your lane. Conversely, if your daily grind is checking email, streaming Netflix, and the occasional spreadsheet, you'll probably be paying a premium for power you'll never tap. The machine sits at a sweet spot between a mobile workstation and a high-end gaming rig, but that hybrid nature brings a few hidden trade-offs you should know before you click Add to Cart. The first thing that hits you out of the box is the display. Lenovo has equipped this ThinkPad with a 16-inch WQUXGA panel, 3840x2400 pixels, 100% DCI-P3 coverage and HDR400. In practice, that means you get razor-sharp text and incredibly accurate colors straight from the factory, perfect for color-critical work like video grading or UI design. I tested it with a 10-minute color grading session in DaVinci Resolve, and the gradients held up without banding, even when I cranked the brightness up to 800 nits to mimic a sunny caf. For gaming, the 60Hz refresh rate isn't the fastest you'll find, but the sheer pixel density gives games a crispness that most 144Hz 1080p panels can't match. The anti-glare coating also does its job. I could work outdoors for a solid hour without the screen washing out, which is a real plus for anyone who likes to code on a park bench. Now, the brain of this beast is the Intel Core i7-14700HX, a 20-core monster that sits a step below the i9 line but still delivers desktop-class performance. In real-world tests, it handled a full render of a 4K animation in about the same time as a desktop with a mid-range i7 and a decent GPU. That said, the chip's power draw is noticeable. When I pushed the laptop to its limits running a simultaneous stress test on the CPU, the RTX 2000 GPU, and a massive dataset in Python, the fans kicked into a high-pitched whine that could be heard across a quiet office. It's not a malfunction, just the result of cramming that much silicon into a 16-inch chassis. If you plan to work in a shared space or record voiceovers nearby, you might need a headset with good isolation. Speaking of the GPU, the NVIDIA RTX 2000 is a bit of a misnomer. It's essentially an RTX 3060 class mobile chip, which brings ray tracing and AI-accelerated features to the table. In titles like Cyberpunk 2077 set to medium-high settings, the laptop hovered around 55 frames per second at its native resolution. That's respectable for a 16-inch screen, though you won't be hitting 144 frames per second unless you dial the resolution down. For creative work, the CUDA cores speed up rendering in Blender and accelerate video effects in Premiere Pro, shaving minutes off render queues. If you're looking for a pure gaming machine that runs at ultra settings on a 1080p display, you'll find the P16 a little over-engineered. Memory and storage are where the ThinkPad really shines for power users. Out of the box you get 32GB of DDR5 RAM, which is split into two 16GB sticks. This configuration means you have dual-channel bandwidth from day one, and you won't be forced into a memory upgrade just to keep up with multitasking heavy Photoshop files or large GIS datasets. The 1TB NVMe SSD feels instantaneous, applications launch in a blink, and copying large video files takes less time than it does on many desktop rigs with SATA drives. The only downside is that the SSD is soldered to the motherboard. You can add a secondary drive via the M.2 slot, but you can't swap the primary drive without a professional opening the chassis. For most people that's fine, but it's something to consider if you're the type who likes to keep a hot spare for backups. Keyboard and security features are classic ThinkPad. The Backlit KYB keyboard gives you a satisfying tactile feel, and the fingerprint reader works flawlessly with Windows Hello, letting you log in under a second. I've used the keyboard for marathon coding sessions, and the key travel remains consistent even after hours of typing, which is a small but meaningful detail for anyone who spends half the day with their hands on the keys. The fingerprint reader is an extra convenience.